So this is the October 24th meeting of the Capital Subcommittee of the School Committee. We will start with the minutes from August 27th, which were the minutes when we were at the old, at the New Lincoln School, when we did the tour and then talked about initial CIP and other things. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
No, will you move it first?
Yeah.
Okay. And Mariah seconds? Okay. Carolyn, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Mariah?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So the purpose of this meeting is mostly to discuss the summer projects, as you can see on the agenda, and this deferred maintenance and the CIP request. We do need to get to a vote on the CIP request, just because we want to recommend that to the school committee so that they can vote it, so it gets into Melissa's CIP. So I'm going to ask Susan, I think, to start, right?
Sure, yes. So before I begin, I do want to acknowledge all the work that Joe Albuquerque, our new Director of Operations, has done to bring forward a recommendation that's grounded in input from principals as well as his operations team and and our town departments. Together and collectively, we have this recommendation for you tonight, and it couldn't have been done without all of his legwork and Charlie and his team working hard to get us pricing and to collaborate with us to make sure that we're putting together our best estimate of what our needs are right here, right now, today. Many of you were on this committee last year, and so you know that when we put forward the request, we knew that we didn't have everything soup to nuts included. We made some choices about what we would bring forward last year, and that was based on what we had a solid understanding of for our needs. And we had a list of things that had been left by our predecessors that we needed to explore further. And so what you're going to see in our presentation tonight is some additional information being added based on our learning this year. And, I think it's safe to assume that every year that we will have a new iteration based on what's happening here, boots on the ground. One of the things I also want to mention before we start is that in the written report, I thought it was important to call out a lot of work that took place, regardless of whether it was funded through our CIP or through the Pierce Building Project, or in some cases, perhaps some was funded through other means. And so in my effort to be comprehensive, enthusiastic, I know that I may have confused some folks by titling on my written memo FY25 CIP status report, and it probably should have just been FY25 capital project status report because those two things are different. So the things that I listed in there were, again, my effort to acknowledge that a lot of work goes into keeping our buildings up and running. Some is funded through CIP, some is funded through repair and maintenance, some is funded through building projects. And a lot of the details around those projects that were funded outside of the actual CIP have been presented at other public meetings. So for example, the Pierce and the OLS, as well as the Newbury College sites that I had mentioned in this report, that report was provided to the Pierce Building Commission or committee. I think it was last week, could have been the week before. But so in other meetings and in other places, we have reported out. Also in the prior meeting here, we reported out on repair and maintenance from the building department. So we've gone through all of that. So in my thinking, of course, there's maybe I had a lapse, and I lumped it all together just to say, kudos to all folks that were involved in the planning and the execution of all of our summer work. So apologize if I confuse people by doing that. Also, I thought it was worthy to put in writing again a reminder about furniture. I know that was a hot topic for advisory committee, and perhaps in the past there was some belief that that furniture that was in good condition, was thrown in dumpsters. I've heard some rumors about that, and we have spoken about that even at the last meeting. And I just wanted to reiterate that is not what we have done. And I think it's important to acknowledge all the effort that went into repurposing this. Sustainability is a huge thing in this town, and we're all doing our part to make sure that whatever resources we have that are in a reasonably decent condition that we don't need ourselves, we have good homes that are found for them. So I just wanted to make a shout out to that. So those two things really don't have to do with the FY25 CIP project status report. So my apologies for that. So how we're going to go about this tonight is that Charlie's going to lead us off, and he's going to go over the CIP project component and give us an update on percentage complete, as well as how we landed in terms of spending. And then we're going to turn it over to Joe, who's going to walk through the deferred maintenance component of our CIP request. And then I will talk about the bigger capital improvement plan. And then we have a couple of votes that we're recommending take place. This is an unusual year. I just want to call this out as well, because the town meeting allocated for FY25 a sum of money greater than FY25 that included sufficient money to do FY26 work. And we will be requesting some modifications, as was part of that the vote at town meeting, that if we were going to make a change in allocation, or things came in, less expensive or more expensive, that we report out on that. So we'll do that tonight. And then with funds that turn favorably toward for us, that we would be modifying our recommendation. Also, there's some priority things that are in there that weren't in last year that we want to be able to move forward with. So there'd be two different types of votes ultimately later on, and we can talk through that. So what I would ask is that you allow us to go through Charlie's presentation and then Joe's presentation and mine, and then we'll take questions, because there's an interrelationship between the information that's being shared in each of these, and you're going to have questions. And we're hoping that we had, we really put a lot of thought into how to present this and is consolidated and concise way for folks to understand. Also, if you do have obviously just some clarifying questions about a particular line item, certainly we're willing to, stop. We just don't want to lose the message and the information that's germane to the votes that need to be taken tonight, so that we can move this along. Does that sound okay? How's that for an opening? Good? Okay, cool. All right, so we'll.
Yes, it's good. I don't know if anybody told you it was good, but it's good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I put 2 thumbs up.
All right, awesome. So I'll turn the mic over to Charlie, and he will go through the FY25 CIP.
There we go. So as Susan mentioned, there were a number of different projects done at a number of different schools. It was a very busy summer, and I don't know if all you know, but I was away for a few months and I wasn't around, but I was trying to help out a little bit. And there was essentially a couple people just doing the best they can, but they got a lion's share of the work done. That included all the schools, and obviously Old Lincoln and Pierce, Newbury. That would be Karen King and Sarah Gooding. So with that, starting at Baker, we were able to do the carpeting and the painting of the classrooms and a staircase. And we completed it before school started. We had some success on some estimates and some success getting it really under, and others we were really over. But in the end, we had a net surplus for Baker. For the Baldwin, we really didn't do any work, and it's actually just carried over. Mostly we were concentrating on opening up the schools. So we'll be going back to Baldwin. Regarding New Lincoln, not Old Lincoln, but New Lincoln, we were able to do most of the second floor, the half of the second floor this summer, which included painting, carpeting, some work on millwork, and we did some work on a bathroom downstairs. We wanted to continue. We're working with the school department to see if we can get some more work done over some breaks. Christmas break be next, maybe April vacation. And we'll continue working on that. The next building is Hayes. So originally, I was looking at $250,000 to upgrade the electrical service. And that was based on essentially the service being maxed out. And after getting consulting information from our electrical engineer, the number was going to be closer to $600,000 to $800,000. Essentially, we needed to build a new electric room. We weren't allowed to use the vault there, and we had to put a new pad mount outside. On top of that, I was told it would take anywhere from 10 to 12 months for the service to be installed and upgraded. On that note, the Baldwin School service was just turned on yesterday, the new service, and it was ordered in early January. Yep. And wasn't a big service, 400 amps, but I consider Baldwin like a big house. So I don't know what's going to happen when you need to upgrade a large building like a school or a fire station. I guess it would be true that it's going to take 10 to 12 months. So with that said, that same engineer happened to be the same engineer that worked on the addition on the back of the B wing. And he had all the original paperwork. So I met him over there with the electrician. And what he was able to determine is, for that addition, we actually had to build another electric room, and that electric room had a spare panel in it. He took the loads for the new heat pumps and he added them up, and it would just fit. We were able to take a circuit from the boiler room and bring it back to the B wing and ultimately install the heat pumps. So right now, everything works at Hayes. The heat pumps are now finished in the back, and the service is tight. You, if you wanted to add anything to Hayes, you can do some small stuff. If you wanted to air condition the auditorium, the cafeteria, it's not going to happen. There's not enough capacity there. So we were able to turn back some money for that. And there needs to be a discussion in the future if you did want to do more work over there, but it's going to be a very expensive project. Moving on to Lawrence, we did do some carpeting. Excuse me, yeah, carpeting in classrooms. Saved a little bit of money. And then we replaced the, I'm sorry, I'm out of whack. We replaced the stair treads, and we used some money that we had left over from FY24 repair and maintenance funds to do that, so we could get a head start on that. Runkle, the multi-purpose room, the curtain and drapes were taken care of and repaired. The soundboard and the control panel went way over budget, but it's all working. And the lighting was repaired and replaced in the multi-purpose room. So that came in the budget. So if anybody has any questions on that, I'm available to answer. If I didn't make anything clear, please let me know.
I do have a quick question, but I also want to honor what Susan asked. So I'm also willing to wait. And it's not urgent.
Well, I mean, I think we could, since we're gonna move on now to next year's, it might make sense to
Okay,
ask you
and
a
these
quick
are super
question.
simple. Charlie, on the Baldwin, and it's off the screen now, but I'm looking at my printout, where the electrical said 50% complete, is that because it wasn't turned on? And as of today, that last column, would that be 100%, or is there more work that you want to do?
The electrician told me this morning that he was complete, so I'm expecting some bills from
Okay.
him, although he is very bad at billing, 6 months out. So it'll take a little while, but everything is 100% complete as of today.
So that 50 is 100, it's complete. And then, so does that mean that the 74,250 you anticipate that is there encumbered money that's not listed there? Like that's only what was spent?
Wait, hold on 1 second. I believe we did spend some of the money because I partially paid him, but I believe most of that is encumbrance because frankly, he needed to finish and we couldn't finish until Eversource came. But I can get you that number later on.
Oh,
And
no,
if he does,
I'm just curious whether the 74,250 represents the, like, what all of what you wanted to do, or whether you want to spend more
Well,
on the
Um,
electrical.
it represents what I would like to have spent. Unfortunately, we had to make some changes
Okay.
because of Eversource. And we had to make some changes, code changes because of the wiring inspector. And I had to do those early on. It wasn't a great amount of money. I don't remember the details. Some of it I had to do with my own tradesman, like it was sealing up a door to make it fireproof because of the way the service came into the building. But overall, I'm very happy. It's a very large service now. It'll suit our needs going well into the future. All the heat pumps work in the building, all the lights work, so we're doing great.
okay,
And then
thank
are
you,
there
Charlie.
things that you had wanted to do that aren't on here, or is that going to be part of what we learn next?
As far as repairs or doing work inside the building?
Just sort of on all of this.
No,
All
we
the summer
concentrated
work.
mostly on the school, so we're gonna start working on these, primarily these things, and I was holding off because I needed the frankly, the lights downstairs to work with the new service, so we'll start plugging away over that over the next few months.
Thank you, Charlie. And I
Ellen,
think,
I have my hand up and so does Perry. I don't know if you can see them or not.
no, I cannot, so I need help. Go ahead.
Okay. My question / request is, and it's a little bit tied to what Carolyn was, I think, just talking about. Is it possible to get a version of this that has another column that sort of anticipates future expenditures on these items? Because it's not clear from this if the $1.1 million, like, are you still expecting to spend 800,000 of that?
Why don't you wait and we'll get to that? Because in the
Okay,
next.
it's in the next one? Okay.
slide, yeah,
Thank you.
if you don't mind. Perry, I can't see you, but please, if it's a quick question. Perry? Perry, are you there? One more time. If not, we'll wait till the end. He can ask it later.
If I
you're there.
could, I just want to point out one more quick thing. I'm sorry I jumped over it. At the new Lincoln, we were anticipating to do some upgrades in the electrical based on putting some air conditioning throughout the second floor.
Will be during this year?
No, the air conditioning estimate came in like, $600,000 to $800,000. That was problem number one. We did meet with the electrical engineer for New Lincoln in the basement. And what he was able to determine is by doing some simple things, we can take a panel in the basement and we wouldn't need to do any kind of like a major upgrade at New Lincoln. So that's why it says 100%. However, I never did put in any heat pumps because of, well, it's going to be probably a standalone project. So it's going to be very expensive.
Okay, but you fixed the electrical so that it can be
Yeah, we're ready to go. So
ready to go. Okay, okay, then why don't we now move on to the mini CIP for this year that we're requesting. I think Joe is going to be presenting that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then we'll come to the understanding of all the numbers that people are asking for. Joe?
Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to segue to the previous page where the remaining balance, I think Mariah was pointing out the 1.145 million that's remaining, the variance to Betsy, do you mind going to the mini CIP, the deferred mini fiscal year 26 now? And go to the bottom, just for right there. So that segue to what's remaining for funds from 25 to 26 that can be utilized for 26 CIP, mini CIP. There was a prior plan that also included fiscal year 26 allocation that was approved for 1,073,000. So from a total balance available for use for this fiscal year coming up in the summer specifically is $2,218,012. Of that, everything that you see on this spreadsheet or this page in this case, the prior plan highlighted in black is what was existing from the prior plan and identified as CIP projects. What is highlighted in blue is actually what was identified and assessed through significant time and effort to meet with town departments, food services, operational staff, principals, and I want to just thank everybody for their time through the last few months to find out additional information and put, obviously some of these blue items will be for fiscal year 26, and then we also identified from a priority standpoint with the principals what level priority 1, 2, and 3 and try to do it for the out years. With that, I will jump into Baker.
Joe, I'm sorry. Do you mind repeating that? So I just lost what black was versus what blue was.
Yeah, not a problem, Mariah. Black is everything that's in black was existing or prior plan for that was approved from last year. And anything blue is new or added that we identified and put it in for this year going forward. So it's all new items.
So wait, so black is the things, sorry to be super pedantic here. So black is things that were supposed to be done in 25, like when you say previously identified and then they got put into 26?
So
black is, sorry.
No, it is a great question. So anything in black was part of the fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 30 plan. So to your point, there will be some items like in Lincoln, for example, some of the classroom millwork and reconditioned floor and paint will be a carryover to fiscal year 26. And then there's items in fiscal year 26 that will remain in 26 and we're going to complete.
Okay. So black is a carryover and blue is originally intended.
Black is actually part of the 26 to 30, sorry, fiscal year 25 to 30 that was identified and approved from the prior plan. So we're just bringing it through, and some of these items weren't complete in 25 will be part of the black Anything new that was not identified in last year's prior plan is in blue. It's all new. New
So
items,
that-
sorry.
Yeah, so Mariah, I think maybe the distinction is, last year, what our plan included was 25, 6, 7, 8, and up to 30. And so when advisory approved the funding, it was for anything that was included in 25 or 26. So if it was included in 25 or 26, it's in black. If it's something new that we did not identify previously, it's in blue. So blues are new adds to the plan, some of which we're recommending funding from available resources that were allocated to us last year. As Charlie pointed out, there's a number of things from last year, as well as estimates from our 26 requests that came in less, which then created more funds available to us in 26. So that's why we thought it would be important to say this amount of money is carried forward after the stuff that Charlie reviewed is completed, some of which will be completed throughout this year. We would have 1,145,000. And then in addition to that, the 1,073,000. And so you can see how the request in 26 balances to 2,218,012. And we thought you would want to know what amount of that was for things that we had not previously asked for by school and how much was asked for and approved prior. And the reason why we were thinking this was important is because the way the vote was taken last year, when this pot of money was approved for us, stated that if we were going to reallocate money into a category, that we needed to bring that request up to the school committee and then to the Board of Selectmen. So we're trying to be intentional about what we're reallocating versus what is a new ask, because pricing came in better for a few things as we refined the scope and or got better pricing than we had
Susan, I'm
intended.
thinking that, what may also be confusing, if I agree with everything you've just said, and I think it's important to be transparent in that way. In Baker, I think we did 5 classrooms of replacing the tiles, and we're doing, I think, another 5 classrooms this year. So that's where the confusion, I think, is. It's the same amount, it's the same title, so it wasn't clear to people. And on one, it says it's 100% complete. Well, the 5 classrooms are 100% complete. The new 5 classrooms are this amount.
But yes, exactly, because in last year's plan for FY25, we said we were going to do 5 classrooms, and then we said we'd do another 5 in 26. So the ones we said we would do in 25 are completed, i.e. Charlie, right? And this new one is what was approved for 26 that we had planned on doing. We know it's hard. It took us a lot of time and deep thinking to try to figure out how do we do this. And, we worked with Melissa too to say, all right, since this is uncharted territory, what's the best way to approach this? And we're not saying we nailed it, but this is our best effort to try to make something that seemed even confusing to us to be as simplified and clear, at least in a way we could explain it to you if you ask questions.
Well, I
Sure.
think my question is, it's about continuity year to year. I can't find our document from last year, like just in looking at it really quickly. But when you talk about blue things being new, that means they weren't on the plan we had for 25-30?
Yes.
Okay,
Correct.
so like what happened to all the other things that were on the plan for 25 through 30? Are they no longer needed? Because we had other things and they weren't all in 25. So like for Baker, there were other things in the plan as far as I recall, and all these schools, like, and I'd have to go look at them side by side, but there were other things identified.
I don't know if there were for Baker, because if you look at Hayes, you can see the out years number.
I have it up on my screen if you'd like to
Ah.
see. I'm
If
happy
we
to
just
share.
do our presentation, I think maybe it'll answer some of those questions. I don't know, but I
But
don't
can I
think
point
that-
out one thing is that What this isn't showing is you've increased your estimate, understandably so, because it came in over budget this year. So in the last year's budget for FY26 Baker carpet replacement was 33,000, and you've correctly increased it to almost 46,000. And you can't tell that by looking at this format. So there's new projects and then there's updated pricing that both need to somehow get reflected. And you have projects that you're carrying over that aren't 100% complete. So those funds, we have to make sure remain segregated and not allocated to new projects. Those funds will not be available until a project is complete for reallocation.
Right, unless it's in the same building, you said.
Well, not once you've started a project. If you've started a project, you gotta you have to finish it. You don't drop something unless it's so discrete. Yeah,
of course. But if
Can
there's
I-
leftover, okay.
Can I give one
Well,
other example? If last
yeah.
year, just going to Lincoln, last year in that document, which I did just find, we had cafeteria reconditioning and kitchen renovation for 26. And those were for 100, one was for 100 and one was for 50. And now they're completely off of it. Not even, they haven't been pushed out, they're just gone.
That's why I would like to finish the presentation so I can explain some of those things, but
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's go, allow the presentation to go on and write your questions down and we'll continue.
I think Charlie had maybe a clarifying.
Yeah, I just, what Carol with Susan and Mariah was saying, I just want to make it clear. So we're not finished of the work in FY25. We're estimating how much it's going to take to finish. We also haven't got all the bills yet. And as Carol pointed out, next year there are estimates. And this is October, and I wouldn't be doing the work until after July. So I want to make it very clear, this is right to the penny because I can't predict exactly where we're going to land. And I can't predict in a year from now, but it should be close. I mean, I'm not expecting to do any work on the service at Heath. So that number is good. And I'm not expecting to do any work on the service at New Lincoln, and we only spent a little bit of money. So it's going to be around that number. I just want to make it clear that it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be exactly that number to the penny. That's all.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful to clarify that. Okay, Susan or Joe, I think you were trying to explain this, at least for next year.
So I'll start off with Baker. We're going to read, so in black, the existing item from last year's CIP. We're going to remove carpets in 5 rooms and replace it with VCT. Yes, last year's pricing, that budget was $30,000. We learned after having done last year's CIP that it was actually $45,600. So we increased that with the remaining available funds. What we also learned from our assessment is we also are interested in removing carpet in the vestibule hallway area next to the cafeteria. We're also going to purchase some area rugs for that entrance area from the courtyard and the cafeteria. In addition, we are interested in painting 10 classrooms on the first floor and second floor, but also the cafeteria and the main hallway area. Staying in that same area, the cafeteria, we learned that we are interested in replacing a dishwasher for capacity purposes. And then replacing with a new kitchen service line with plumbing and electrical upgrades. These are short-term fixes. And as Dr. Givens pointed out, in her section coming up after we discuss this mini CIP, she'll discuss further about the kitchens, the cafeterias, climate control, sustainability, and a little bit more detail for the things that some of you have mentioned that's not in this document, but we pulled it out. So we've identified the numbers for fiscal year 26 for these new items. One other item in Baker was we wanted to refurbish some staircases, treads, and risers for 3 of the badly needed to be updated and refurbished, and that was at $30,000. The new kitchen service line, again, $115,000. Dishwasher was $40,000 to replace it, and some work and labor associated with it. Painting rooms was $60,000, and we identified $12,500 for the removal of carpeting, and then purchasing the area rugs. Going into Lincoln.
Are we supposed to ask questions or hold our questions? Sorry to interrupt.
Is it a quick question?
Well, my question is just about the dishwasher. I thought all the dishwashers had just been put in as part of last year's sustainability thing. No? Is the Baker one older?
Yes,
Yes.
and it's in
Thanks.
disrepair.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
You're welcome. Lincoln, these are carryovers from 25. For example, the second floor, third floor reconditioning. We only completed the floors and the painting in the middle school section area, so we have to go to the third floor and second floor. Replacing the tiles, bathroom renovations, which we started last year. We did 2 neutral bathrooms in the first floor near the library, and then once we're completed the painting in the second and third floor, 40% of the area down in the basement is complete. We will finish up the remaining 60%, removing the wallpaper and then painting that. So some of those numbers are coming over from the deferred maintenance from Charlie, he just spoke about. And those are items that were from last year, and some of it, like finishing removing wallpaper, was a fiscal year 26 item. At Hayes, we added a few new items that we identified. Some of the auditorium renovations in terms of lighting the wall sconces. Again, some areas that needed some painting, staircase railings, cafeteria to the auditorium. And we identified that as out in the future fiscal years. But one item that we did highlight and wanted to get approval from this group is replacing an oven equipment, because it is end of life, and needs to be replaced in the kitchen at Hayes. At the Brookline High School, extending Lowell Road loading dock for just basically widening it to 10 feet for $30,000. And then some new items in blue that were identified for both this year and next year. Auditorium lighting repairs and updates. The repairs would be the house lights, the chandeliers, because the connection to the dimmer and the programming switches are not working. They've lost their connections, but also the staging light needs to be upgraded to LEDs, and we'd like to do that this year. And then the other item that we learned, speaking to operational staff and principals, is renovating and painting the interior spaces at UAB. The high ceilings are, there's chip paint, peeling. So that's going to be a little bit more, obviously high ceilings, we're going to need scaffolding. So we'd like to get that project going, and then go into the all the other rooms to paint as well. Lawrence. So Lawrence School, there are one new item here that we identified that needed some painting, both in the areas near the cafeteria, but also the nursing office needed it. The item that we had last year was the girls' locker room. Actually, it was the boys' locker room, but when we spoke to the principal, she thought it would be a better decision to go with the girls' locker room to create a classroom space for 5 to 6 students and upgrade the bathrooms within that space. So flooring, painting, and updating the bathrooms for $250,000. At Runkle, these are 2 items that were identified to be done in 26. Both painting all the classrooms in the hallway areas, and then one of the things that we learned from this walking through this all the schools, this flooring minor repairs has been updated. It was going to be a $500,000, but when we learned and walked through the and checked the floors, we identified actually it wasn't major work. It was actually minor floor repairs in a staircase, a room had some tiles popping up, and hallway areas on the 1st and 3rd floors specifically. So we decreased that cost from $500,000 from last year's fiscal year 25 to 30 plan to $100,000 to complete the work that needs to be done with regards to these repairs and floors at Runkle specifically. And that is the 26 mini CIP. It equals or totals $2,218,012. Betsy, do you mind just going down just to the end of the sheet for a second? So basically, prior plan we had $1,523,338, and new items were requested priority to be completed for fiscal year 26, 594,674, which totals to the 2,118,012.
Okay, thank you, Joe. I think we can take questions on this because,
I would like to do the last slide if you don't mind.
oh, okay,
because it'll
sure, go
answer-
for it.
Yeah.
Go for it. Yeah,
I
that's a
think
good
it'll,
idea. Sorry,
this will
thank
answer
you for,
additional
thank you.
questions that were asked.
yeah.
So really we've just reviewed the detail for the deferred maintenance, and we've just really focused on that. But our capital improvement plan includes other items. And so as we took the feedback from the last meeting, when folks were explaining that deferred maintenance should be deferred maintenance and not new, projects. So so we took that to heart, and we made some adjustments to how we presented the information. We also learned that we have some longer term challenges in our food service infrastructure. And we pulled out anything related unless it was urgent. So the items that Joe mentioned, the dishwasher over at Baker, as well as the oven at Hayes, I think it was Hayes, right?
Yes.
Yeah, were things that need to be attended to post haste. But all the other items, we wanted to conduct a study of our kitchens and our cafeteria spaces. One, because we'd like to better understand, as Mariah said, what hasn't been done over time. Sustainability in this particular area is really a high priority. And so there might be things that we can do by modifying the way the servery is set up in order to better meet our longer term goals, as well as improve the traffic coming through the lines when lunches are happening. And then at the high school, another example of that is that we've had some problems with new panini grills, you know, not having adequate ventilation, and then the fire alarms go off. And so we'd really like to have a deeper look at the kitchen and cafeteria areas in particular, to be able to come up with a plan before we start investing money. So that is why Lincoln kitchen and cafeteria were pulled out, because we feel after meeting with or felt after meeting with Sasha and having conversations with Charlie and his team, that this is bigger, and we don't want to, you know, make some alterations and then find out, you know, really if we had thought about this or considered sustainability and or some of the other challenges, that we may do it differently. So so that's why you see that we pulled out anything related to cafeteria and kitchen throughout the deferred maintenance lines for now, until we have a better handle on that. Another thing that was in last year's plan was to conduct a study for Lawrence cafeteria expansion, again, because this was related to cafeteria, just as Lincoln and the high school and Baker and Hayes are. We pulled that out, and what you'll see in the line that now says long-term capital plan, our vision for that is to include in that capital plan a review of our kitchen and cafeterias. We also want to look through the lens of gender inclusion, restroom facilities, how to completely close what we're calling kind of the climate control gap, so that all spaces in our schools have climate control in them. We've done, you know, great work. Thank you, Charlie and his team, at getting most of our learning spaces, though not all of our common spaces in most buildings, with climate control, but it's not equitable everywhere. And so we want to really look at that. And sustainability is another initiative that's really important, both for the town and the school department. And so we really want to better understand, as we move forward, what kinds of things should we be considering, so that as we're doing upgrades and deferred maintenance projects, that we know ahead of time what kinds of choices that we ought to be making, and not just replacing kind for kind. The other piece of the study would be, you know, space adequacy. So we know that at the Lawrence School and other schools, that some of the core facilities were designed for a smaller number of sections in the building, and then when they expand and we start using other spaces that weren't initially designed for classrooms, then it puts pressure on core facilities. And so we want to think creatively, but thoughtfully about, you know, what kinds of adjustments and modifications do we need to make in order to best suit our needs today. We saw some of that in the high school list over at Greenow, that there has been some requests to relook at spaces. So when I say space adequacy, that's really what we're looking for. So you know, one of our high priorities for the upcoming year is to, and this is a town school long-term capital plan. These things are things that would be reviewed through a critical eye as part of that capital plan. And then once we have that, the other thing that you'll notice in our deferred maintenance plan was that if we had funding for this, we wouldn't get that funding until May of this year. And then we would need to commission a study, which would take some work to develop an RFP. And then the study would happen next year, but wouldn't happen in time for the CIP cycle for the following year, for 27. So the soonest that we could incorporate funding requests for these items that would be in this study would be FY 28. So as we were thinking about the relationship between what was feasible and practical for conducting the long-term study, and then how to, and when we would then be able to take that information and incorporate it into this plan. We did not include money for things like climate control, gender inclusion, et cetera, until 28. So that was our thinking, and that's why you see some of the modifications here. We also tried to be frugal with the taxpayer dollar, you know, and that's why when Joe took a deep dive into Runkle, we were initially last year thinking replacing all the flooring. But why replace flooring that's in perfectly good shape? Another example of that is that as we looked at the money that was set aside in Lawrence to replace all ceilings don't need to be replaced. And this was pointed out at our last meeting. And so what Charlie did is he said, okay, this is a better model. We replace all of the ceiling tiling in certain core spaces, and then we repurpose the good tiles in other areas that may have a stained tile here and there, so that you don't have discoloration or different colors of ceilings and I thought that was a really great way to approach that. So we reduced the funding estimate for that. Again,
So Susan, just a quickie, you meant Lincoln, not Lawrence.
I'm sorry.
You said Lawrence, but I think you meant Lincoln.
I did.
Thank you.
L's, yeah. Lincoln, sorry about that, yes.
Okay.
So that's why we wanted to go through the presentation. We know it's a lot. It's taken us a long time to really think through this, and a lot of time and effort and thought was put into it. And we know it's a lot for you to take in because we have been working on this and working on this and working on this, and this is your first opportunity to see it. So we're not offended by questions. We know this is challenging to kind of wrap your head around, and we don't have a lot of time. So we've done our level best to present it in the cleanest, clearest way possible, knowing that it's a lot. So I guess at this point we'll take questions from the
From the committee or anybody else who's on the call can also ask. Mariah.
Thank you. I have a question about some of the.
Mariah,
Can
you're
you?
fading
Can you?
out.
Sorry.
Better.
Hold on one
It's
second.
much better.
Is it better?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. So my question is, to what extent is the revolving fund for food services available for this purpose?
Which purpose?
For the purpose of repairs to our food service facilities?
Yeah.
I think that's a great question, Mariah. There isn't significant money. I think the fund balance at the end of this year was about 700,000, which might sound like a lot, but you want to maintain at least 3 months worth of a balance in your budget. And then what we did not include in this is the smaller, although it would be large for many of us, things like, you know, what we would consider more appliance related items. Also the repair and upgrade of some of the smaller servery items. Really what we're putting in the capital project under deferred maintenance are the things that are like infrastructure pieces. So just to clarify, there isn't a ton of money sitting in there at 700,000 from the food service to be able to allocate and or fund this at this point in time.
If I could add to that, because many people don't have perspective on food services. Since the state has been paying for food services, we are in the black. But prior to that, food services was always in the red and was always a problem. So I would be very hesitant to spend any of that money, except for like on small, appliances or things like that, to leave a substantial balance, because we have no clue whether the state will continue forever to do this or not. I think it's a year by year thing, to the best of my knowledge. Mariah, did that answer your question? Because your hand is still up.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Carolyn, you're the next one on my list.
Thanks. thank you. This is great and super interesting. And I thought the black and the blue was really helpful and clear. So I have a couple questions that I think go together. So I think I'll just ask them. And some of this might just be because this is new to me as a school committee member, although I sort of jumped into this sometimes through advisory. So where it's now October of FY25, and I think the first sheet that showed so much already done, or that was maybe just this, well, it was the project update FY25. So those were things that were done in the summer. And then we have the black and blue list that has the things from FY25 that weren't done, and they're now in an FY26 column. Is that just sort of semantics, or basically like what happens between now and
So what happens
July?
is school, and it's very difficult to do a painting of a classroom during the school year, to do many of
Yep.
the items that are on there. We have like
So
a
that's
limited,
why Charlie or someone was talking about vacation time.
exactly.
Yeah. And I was thinking about also just the sort of priority things, and I wanted to confirm what I heard, that it sounded like the dishwasher, oven, and another oven, that the cafeteria stuff feels more immediate to staff, and those things are potential to do during a vacation time.
They certainly could be, what we were thinking that would be done in the summertime. Some of it, and I think Charlie or Joe can chime in, my understanding is that some of the work that has to be done at Hayes requires electrical work to be done. So we would need to have access to the kitchen longer than a break.
Yeah.
But super essential, and not, we tried to think about it like not spending money that we'd have to spend again. So the things that we put in 26 are things that would have to be done either way. And even with the study, it wouldn't have a negative impact on whatever we learn from there. Either way, this would have to be done.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's clear. And again, it's more just my question isn't sort of like, why aren't you doing this? It's confirming that so most of this happens in the summer.
Most of
That's a
it
yes
does,
or no. Yeah.
except for Baldwin, and that's why we chose in Charlie's part of the report, we feel like all of Baldwin can be done in 25. So that's why it's not showing up on the 26 deferred maintenance, because what we thought we could complete, I think is that's true, Charlie, right? What I'm saying is, did he leave?
Yes,
That's okay.
There,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That totally makes sense. And it's really just a sort of confirmation of my understanding. Thank you. And then the reason I'm guessing that you don't get to everything is just person power.
person power contractors, it's called the summer
Yeah,
slam, and
yeah,
everybody's
yeah.
hiring every contractor, so.
Yeah.
it
And
is
then
what it is.
I have one other question that goes back to conversation, which I won't get into here, from that happened at the Pierce SBC meeting, where you were saying, I thought, Charlie, that if you don't spend your money, you can't roll it over. Is that a different bucket?
That's operating money, yes.
Okay.
so there's the CIP, and then there's the
Yep.
repair and maintenance budget. They're two
Okay.
separate,
And
but
R&M
even though
is
this is
within
deferred
operating.
maintenance,
Yep.
it's,
Okay, thank you. That's the confusion, because that
Yeah.
word shows up in both places. Thank you
Right.
so much.
thank you. Carol,
Can hear you.
Carol, yeah,
Thank you.
okay.
Sorry about that. Thank you. I appreciate, even though we've given you 2 years of funds, that you want to that you want to revisit some of the decisions that were made last year, especially now that you have Joe. So I do get that. So I just have a couple comments. One is sort of an aside. I'm interested in what you were saying, Susan, about food service and taking a look at it. And the aside is, I do recall on the Pierce project, one of the major value engineering things was changing, and I'm gonna forget the details, but you took away a type of ventilation so you'd no longer be able to have a flat top in the kitchen. And I remember raising, I think that's what it was. It was something like $500,000 in a VE. And I'm just concerned that if food service is now reconsidering what they're going to be needing, that value engineering decision should be looked at quickly, because I'd hate to see the schools come back looking for capital money to retrofit something that was just built if the standards are changing. So that's just a heads up.
I think we can take a look at that. I think that's important, but I do know that Sasha has gone over in depth with
Okay.
the architects. However, sometimes things get lost. So,
And my memory's not the best. I'm gonna be real clear on this one.
okay.
My memory is not the best.
All right.
I do believe that for purposes of reallocation, we should be looking, or you should be looking at funds differently for where project and work is 100% complete and where it isn't. So the $20,000 left at Baker after you fully completed everything that was in the budget for FY25 is $20,000 that's available there, though I would say that 15,000 of it should be applied to the carpeting work that was already scheduled for fiscal year 26 that we know is going to cost more than the $33,000 that was allocated. I wouldn't consider that part of the existing bucket. I would say similarly to that, the Lincoln School, we're showing right now $550,000 for the second and third floor unspent, but the work's only 25% done. If you indulge me, I'd love to send you some alternative ways of formatting this analysis that I know is the way I would approach it on the capital subcommittee. I'm not going to try and talk it through now, but if you'd be open to it, I'd love to play some games to show some ways that we could also be looking at it that would be more akin to how we would be looking at it at the AC, and how we'd be separating out a true variance in cost, a true, something that hasn't been completed versus something that's new. And that's an offer.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cough on everybody's.
No, that's okay. I'm offering that to Susan and Joe and Charlie.
Yeah.
A marked up spreadsheet with some alternative ways of formatting it.
I don't know.
I'll defer to Susan, and we can set it up anyway anybody likes.
I think for us, the formatting that we have here serves, a purpose that the three of us and our teams understand what work we need to do. And we tried to balance it with the wishes of town meeting, AC, and others to honor what you had asked us to do. So although there certainly can be a much more complex way to do it, when you start moving things around, we have less and less understanding about what is here and what it means. So I think for the moment, I would prefer that we at least from a starting place go through the process using what we know so that we can explain it. When we start moving everything around to suit one party's needs, sometimes it makes it less understandable to other people. So that's what I would say.
Okay, I will tell you what, I'm gonna reformat it anyways, because I know.
You did last year and
I
it
can
caused us
understand.
confusion, Carol.
Yeah.
And we're the ones that had to sit here today and try to figure out what does all this mean. And so we appreciate that everybody has a different way that they'd like data. What I think is most important from my perspective is that Charlie's team and Joe's team really understands with some measure of clarity what it is we're doing and why, without moving things around too much at this particular point. That I'm not saying no or never or whatever, and certainly we have a conversation, but in terms of we know how to present this and we know exactly what it means right now. My fear is changing it up too much would then cause us to have to rethink everything that we have spent.
Okay.
Trying to
Well,
do.
I will tell you, last year, the capital subcommittee and the AC was really thinking that if you did have surpluses at a particular school, your next look would be at another project that you would put out in the future for that school. So for instance, at Baker, as I said, you've got $20,000 left. I think the first 15 of that 20,000, I would hope you'd allocate towards the carpeting.
Well, that's
Far
exactly,
more in our request for Baker than was left over, and then we have other identified needs. And next year, we're going to have even other things because things will wear out at a rate that we didn't expect it, and there'll be side effects and consequences of wear and tear that we couldn't foresee. And so every year there's going to be some adjustments, and we can't nail it down by every single school. It just in practice it doesn't work the way as neatly as advisory would like it to. So
okay. Sarah,
Okay.
I'm sorry, are you finished, Carol?
Yes, I was just saying okay with my microphone on instead of off.
Okay, all right,
I really
Sarah?
appreciate, thank you, Susan. I really appreciate you explaining how you think about these things. And so I had one more thing to try to figure out how you're thinking about it, just so that I can be brought up to date. I see Baker's feasibility study, and because I haven't been around yet for the beginning of a project, I wanted to hear your thinking about why that's in fiscal year 30. I certainly wouldn't want it to be any later, but why is it not any earlier? What are the things that we weigh when we try to decide when we're going to start the feasibility study? Thank you.
So I think perhaps I don't know the entire history of
Do you
Baker,
want me to
and
answer?
so I was going to say I would defer answering that question to maybe Helen or somebody who's been here longer.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So I think, we have to look at the town's capacity to borrow, the town's ability. And we're coming off of a lot of projects recently because of the increase of our population that had to get done. So far, Baker School seems to be somewhat, balanced in terms of increase. I think that the population's down from its high. So we're hoping to be able to wait until 30. That will give us enough time to finish Pierce, give some leeway, 2 years for the people in town to breathe, and not have another, override. The 2.6 million would be part of, I imagine, the CIP, not as part of an override. And that would help us to know what we're really talking about at Baker. So that's sort of my thinking. It's the way that we've done other projects. Sometimes they get moved up and sometimes they get moved out further. I remember with Runkle, when I was first on the school committee, I thought, oh, by the time my daughter's in 4th or 5th grade, Runkle will be done. I think it was at the high school or had graduated by the time it had gotten done. So, you know, a lot of it is MSBA. We would probably want to get MSBA partnership. That takes time. So there's a lot of pieces that go into it. I think what you see here is a placeholder because we know that it was last done. It would be our oldest school and is the one that would need an upgrade. What that upgrade would be exactly, I can't tell you today, but that's what we would be looking for to get money to look at that.
That's super helpful. And of course, I'm not at all challenging that needs to be done. I would love to see it done. You know, fiscal year 30 is great to see that done. And it's just helpful to
one other thing.
Yeah.
With MSBA, we have been incredibly fortunate with them partnering with us, usually on the first time that we've asked for money. That didn't happen with Ridley, but with all the others.
Right, I remember that part, yeah.
Yeah, and so we don't know what will be in the pipeline in, 2030. We'd have to go out to MSBA. We can't even go and ask them for money until we finished with Pierce. That's the other piece in all of this. So
okay,
that's
you can't ask for money for construction, not for feasibility.
No, even for feasibility. We couldn't do it on our own, the feasibility. Right. We may or may not get reimbursed for that. That part I don't remember.
So what percentage are you sure that that's even fiscal year 30? Are you saying that that's a placeholder right now and something that we're going to still decide whether it even begins there?
But that would be my sense. I think in the next year or two, we'll know better and I think that's why we're putting money into Baker. It's at least $500,000, I think, for next year to fix up some of the classrooms, things that need to happen, the flooring, the painting.
Yeah,
so
and what I'm listening to you for is sort of how you go about thinking about the decision. So I did hear you at one point say that, you know, 2-year break would be helpful. So it's just helping me get up to speed as we need to advocate for that to happen sooner or later. Thank you.
I think also one thing I would add is that seeing the impact of Hancock Village, which has not had a significant impact on our so far, will also be an important piece. So when you look at Baker as the oldest school, it's like, are you talking about renovation or actually renovation and expansion? And that would matter. And I think one of our hopes would be that if we can get funding for the long-term capital plan, we'll have a better sense of what Baker's needs are if it's renovation. So, you know, so I think that will help us too, to be able to assess, you know, when it's time to invest a significant amount of money, more than what deferred maintenance would be, for that.
Truly the definition of feasibility right there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else, Sarah? I guess not. Carolyn?
Thanks. Just wanted to confirm my understanding of a process question that I think got mentioned, but again, just want to confirm. Is it correct that now, because of a vote at town meeting, and you'd think I would know this, that where I'm looking at the plan, the hope, the black and blue list, that any changes in allocations that staff would like to make will be going through some kind of approval process?
Yes. So, and I talked to Melissa about this as well, to make sure that I'm able to advise correctly. So for what we're proposing for FY26, we need to go to the school committee and get their approval, and then we go to the Board of Selectmen. And they notify advisory committee of the changes. That's for the deferred maintenance component of CIP, which is not our full CIP. Is that clear?
I think so. I think if if what you just said encompasses what I'm gonna say now. Let's say next summer comes and someone says, you know what, instead of doing the classroom cabinet millwork repair second and third floor at Lincoln, let's take $40,000 and do.
You just cut out, at least for me.
Yeah,
Carolyn? Carolyn?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
yes.
Sorry, my earbuds died. I was asking whether if you decide you'd rather take some chunk of money and spend it something in a way that's different from this list, is that a decision that just gets made internally among staff, or is that a decision that has to go through an approval process, a change in decisions about spending? I'm sorry, I'll go away from this vacuum.
I think I think what we're saying is the same thing. Your understanding is correct. So that's why we bring this here. There's things that are going to shift.
Yeah.
And some outside of categories and some within, and we're just trying to be transparent. And we're also trying to give you the best estimates that we have.
Yeah.
So we will bringing this forward. So you're going to do 2 votes tonight. One is the process of modifying what has been approved for funding already, i.e. the deferred maintenance is before you. And that process is it goes to the school committee and then we go to the Board of Selectmen. We need the approval of both. For the other items that are like, Betsy, if you can go to the big CIP, right, that includes classroom capacity, furniture and fixtures, and the long-term capital plan, there is no existing funding for that. So what we would be recommending on that, hopefully, if you all agree, is to move forward with a funding request for classroom capacity, FF&E, and the study. And that would go through a different process because
Okay.
does that
But-
help?
It does, but my question, thank you for explaining. My question has more to do with, let's say it's July 15th, 2025, and you decide you want to spend some of this money a different way. Are
We
you
go through the
able
same
to
process.
just make that decision? Okay, thank you. It
Yeah.
still has to go. Okay,
Through
thank
the
you.
process. Yep. Each time, if we're going to spend the money that's allocated differently, then we have to go through the same process.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. I see Carla Benka's hand up, and I think Mariah has a question, and then I'm hoping we can get to a possible motion and a vote.
Thank you, Helen. This is, I hope is a straightforward question. What is the useful life expectancy of the dishwasher that you're considering for Baker? And the reason I'm asking that is I'm looking at the definition of a CIP project. And it talks about a capital improvement project is any project that improves or adds to the town's infrastructure, has a substantial useful life, and costs over $25,000. And
Yeah, I don't know the exact, but I would say 10 to 20 years, Joe. I mean, do you have a sense of that? I've never replaced a dishwasher very often in my career, and I've been doing this for 35 years, so they have a long life if you maintain them, of course.
And just as a follow-up, you know, when the on the town side of the budget, say when DPW needs a new car or somebody, they need a new copying machine in town hall, that doesn't come out of the CIP, that comes out of the capital bucket in the operating budget. And so does the school budget have something similar, or is it just personnel, supplies, and services?
Well, we have our repair and maintenance budget.
Yeah. A lot of repair and maintenance on the school, however, is in the town budget, not in the school department budget. So Charlie's budget includes repair and maintenance for the schools. So you won't see it called out in a budget that's presented by the school department because Charlie's presenting it on our behalf. However, we do have money to fix our copiers in our budget, as well as, kilns and other such things. That doesn't come out of Charlie's budget.
But if you
But-
needed a new copier,
That
for
comes out of our
example,
budget. Yeah, that comes out of the school department budget, and we budget for that separately, and we lease them here in Brookline.
right, and that's absolutely correct. And a lot of stuff that the DPW has that is, they have a lease and then purchase project. But I'm getting back to, I'm sort of scratching my head over how, and we're not talking about the repair or the maintenance of the dishwasher at Baker, we're talking about a new one. So
Yeah, and this is an industrial strength dishwasher because we're planning on using all dishes now and not having disposable stuff.
I understand all of that. And so what I'm wondering is whether when it comes time to discuss this as a CIP purchase, there wouldn't be a question of whether the policies and definition of a CIP project that are currently used would not need to be amended. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Mariah, you had a question, and then I think I don't see anybody else having their hand up.
Yes, can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Okay, great. My question was, someone had mentioned to me about the Lawrence School front door walk. I don't know what you describe it, the concrete planks that are in front of the front door. And I was wondering, and I guess this is a question for Susan and Joe, if you and Principal Bolello had discussed that area and or with Charlie, and if that came into the discussion, because I didn't see it presented anywhere tonight.
Yeah, the three of us did talk about that, and Charlie informed us that that was a DPW item, not a public building item, right? Can you speak more about that, Charlie? I'm not
Well,
sure.
I still wanted to go down. I don't think I'm gonna make it this week, but I still want to go down and look at it. I heard it might be created by the water coming off the building, so I just want to see it, put some eyes on it.
Okay, so if there's a problem, then it would get slotted into the DPW CIP for whatever repairs need to happen there.
Yes, something to that.
Okay.
Does it become icy in the winter?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, you're Lauren's parent.
Yeah, but I have no idea. And I hadn't noticed
Okay.
it. Someone else mentioned it to me. So, but it just
Okay.
popped into my head. I thought it might have come up today.
All
So,
right.
yeah.
Well, thank you for bringing it up. Sounds like Charlie's going to check it out together with Joe and talk with our friends in DPW and see what the story is. But at this point, I think we need to move forward with our
Can I make one last comment, Helen?
maybe. If it's
I just want to point out that the Lawrence locker room project was not part of the fiscal year 26 money that was funded. That has been moved forward from fiscal year 27. So you might consider that a blue instead of a black because that was not previously funded,
Oh.
that $250,000.
So correct me when you're looking at your spreadsheet. Was the boys' locker room initially for that amount?
The boys' locker room for Lawrence was 250,000 in 27, fiscal year 27. It was not part of the fiscal year 26.
It wasn't part of or this year's?
We moved it, Joe moved it up based on the needs there. So yes,
Right.
we can change that to blue. It was in the plan last year, but it's been changed a year. So maybe we leave the item black, but we put the dollar amount in blue. Just so that,
Yeah, I mean, so
But it's a change from the boys to the girls is what I'm trying to say.
It's a change from the
Yes.
boys to the girls, but the whole concept of converting a locker room into a classroom for 250,000 is not something that the other parts of town have said, oh yeah, we agree with that. Let's spend $250,000 on that. So it's not
I
an
see.
existing
So it's
thing
new.
that was approved as part of the, if black is to connotate things that were
Okay,
all
got it.
approved as part of the fiscal year 26
So
thing.
I'll take that amendment, and we'll put that in blue for the school committee. But I would like to move, that was all you had to say, right, Carol?
Helen, before you move,
Yeah.
can I just make one comment?
Sure.
I was just gonna say one last thing. The only other thing I was gonna recommend is for your long range plan of 400,000, you might want to break that out into different plans because you have a really big bucket of things that you want to plan for. That's all.
I think that we hopefully will have one company that has that capacity to do those things and to help us. So I'm not sure that it needs to necessarily. I think that we can determine if it needs to be broken out, but all of it towards a capital. Mariah, what did you want to say?
I was going to say that when we vote tonight, I'm going to abstain, and I want to explain why. And part of it is really, or the main issue is for me is not being able to follow along from last year to this year and not being able to have the full conversation about what things are gone and why. And I understand some of what Susan was saying about, for example, kitchens have now all disappeared because it's part of this long-term capital plan. But I feel a little bit uncomfortable about not having had that chance to understand last year to this year. And I feel a little bit uncomfortable about completely zeroing some of those things out when we think they're going to have some sort of a future on the deferred maintenance. So that's my reasoning for abstaining, and it's not to minimize the amount of work that's done. It's just because my brain is not fully understanding what I would be voting on at this point and how it relates to what we've previously discussed.
Okay. Well, let's,
And I'm sorry, I'm gonna just ask one clarifying question. With appreciation for Mariah being forthright about needing to understand everything. So to piggyback on what Carol just clarified, that maybe, sorry, can we see the black and blue slide? I'm looking at it in my hand in black and white. So the locker room conversion. So that's a $250,000 for FY. It wasn't. So if it's blue, if that's actually new FY 26 money, then does that change the funds remaining from FY 25 deferred maintenance and the FY 26 allocation? In other words, I'm sorry, I'm trying to sort of just follow on the point that Carol made, that something changed there. Okay, was whether it was boys or girls, was there $250,000 allocated for a locker room to classroom change at Lawrence in FY 25?
No,
No,
it's not.
Okay, so if it's now blue, and I support prioritizing these kinds of, you know, if Lawrence is overcrowded, I've certainly experienced that at the Baker School. So this is not a question about the project itself or the value of it, but so is it correct then that the funds remaining would change and that FY 26 would change?
The only thing that changes is that because of the circumstances, right now, students having some of their services delivered in hallways at Lawrence, that we would like to give a more private and appropriate space, the only space that that can be done.
Fine, I'm not, as I
Yeah,
just said,
But
really,
just
I
a second.
experienced that with my own
If I can
children.
finish, if I
Yeah.
can just finish. So when we put the plan last year, to Mariah's point, together, this item was scheduled to take place in FY '27, and what
Yep.
Carol is saying is now we've moved it to '26, and so it should be
Yep.
blued. Not because it wasn't asked for, but it wasn't asked for within the time frame of the initial funding.
Got it.
Yeah,
But so then what I guess, maybe I'm not being clear, down on the bottom. Where, yep, do those subtotals change?
yes.
Yes,
Okay,
they
and
get
so-
readjusted.
okay, thank you. And so I'm wondering whether the motion should reflect that change.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you. And to be clear again, Susan, I actually, I was, one of my questions was going to be to support that as a priority. I think that if we have kids in hallways, we need to prioritize, getting them into something that resembles a room. So thank you for moving it forward in time. I just wanted to make sure that our motion reflected a shift there, if necessary. Thank you.
Can I just ask one other question? Locker
Sure.
rooms don't have windows. Are you allowed by code to have a windowless classroom?
These are not full classrooms. They're smaller learning spaces that would have students maybe up to 5 or 6. But right now they're providing the services in hallways, and we think it would be, it's not ideal. I mean, if we could have it someplace else that was available, we certainly would, but there doesn't seem to be another option right now.
And I think we get into privacy concerns, Carol, that if I recall, back in 2016-ish, Helen might remember, there might have even been an OCR complaint related to children receiving services in hallways at Baker.
There
So,
was at
yeah.
FRR. Yeah. Okay, I hear what Mariah is saying. I understand what you want, Mariah, and maybe some of that can be presented ahead of our vote at the school committee.
Yeah,
But
I imagine that's the case. And I probably could follow up with Susan and Joe with like an email with 3 questions in an hour or 2. It's just like this moment in time, I need that. I don't have the
Okay.
info that I would need. Yeah, that's all. I'm sure it'll all work out before we have a full school committee vote.
because we do have a time concern here. And
Sure.
we know what we want to have at least for next year. I hear what you're saying. Let's, we're all new at this. Let's get this through this year, and next year we'll do better.
Well, but this is going to full school committee anyway, right? On the 30th?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and we all have
so wait,
time. So
this is
there's
the first
time.
fight. Yep.
There's time between now and then, but it does have to get to Melissa by our school committee meeting, whenever it is right now, next week. Okay, so I will make the motion that we approve the CIP request for FY '26 with the changes that were noted.
If you're gonna be consistent, Helen, there's another change you need to make. For Hayes, that library carpet replacement was also moved up from fiscal year '27. So that's blue also
In what school?
for Hayes. I mean, I'm just doing this on the fly, but there's a bunch of things that were moved up from out
Well,
year.
I hear you. Let's not do it on the fly. Let's vote what we have here. And make sure that everything is adjusted for our school committee meeting, Susan, if that's okay with you and Joe, so that it reflects what's moved up, what isn't moved up. But I do need us to move. I would like to move the one that we know, the Lawrence School classroom And I guess let's hold off on the rest and make sure that you have them all for our school committee meeting. Okay, Joe?
Yes, I'm taking notes, so I'll make.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So
And Helen,
also, the bottom number will change. Well, not the bottom number doesn't change. It's what's in the prior plan and what's in the uploaded plan. Yes, who's asking?
that was just me. I'm sorry, Helen. So Susan has 2 votes, which I think is helpful. One is the vote on the changes to this deferred maintenance, so that this then can be presented to the select board for them to notify the advisory committee. So that's sort of one vote. And then the second vote is on the CIP itself.
Do you have those that actual language?
Yes, here, I'm sorry, it's right in her cover memo. I should have pulled that up here.
Okay, thank you.
And
I
we
just have that
to
in
this
front
one
of me.
here that will add the phrase about, amendments to reflect the change to the Lawrence School plan
Okay,
for the first motion.
so, yeah, let's take the first motion first. I'll move to approve the modifications made to the deferred maintenance project allocations recommended by the administration. Is that right?
That's right, yes. And then just with some language, including changes discussed at the meeting, i.e. Lawrence School, locker room, something like
Thank you,
that.
Betsy. Locker room being converted to a classroom.
Mhm.
Okay, do I have I need to see. Can we go back and forth? Can you toggle back and forth? I need to see people to be able to.
Yeah.
Okay,
sorry.
great. So I made the motion. Does somebody want to second it?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Sarah. And I'll call the roll. Sarah,
Yes.
Carolyn,
Yes.
and Mariah.
Abstain.
Excellent. Okay, now let's go back to the second.
And just your
You
vote,
need to
Helen.
vote.
Oh, and I vote yes. I'm so sorry. Thank you. Thank you for keeping me honest. Betsy, if you can go back to. I'll move that we approve the FY26 school capital improvement plan recommended by the administration in the amount of $236,948. And now can we go back to seeing people?
Mhm.
Thank you.
That.
Okay, thank you, Carolyn. So Carolyn, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Sarah
Yes.
and Mariah?
Abstain.
Okay, and the chair votes yes. Okay, I think we did a fairly decent job of getting through that. We still have new business and old business. Does anybody have new business? Okay, I'm not going to wait more than 2 seconds. Sorry, guys. Does anybody have old business? Not hearing any. I want to thank everybody because this was a hard meeting to get through all this stuff. And thank Charlie and Susan and Joe for putting this together, working together collaboratively to really start to get this in a manner that I like it. I mean, it may take more. Next year will be different, but I think we're really on our way to understanding and getting the CIP to meet the needs that we have. So, don't we have to vote do we have to vote the classroom capacity or that
That's in the vote, Carol.
That's in the vote.
1.2, yeah. So the 1.2 was for classroom capacity, FF&E, and the study, the long-term capital plan. Those three
But
combined.
that's 3.2.
Wasn't that what you were voting on before? Was the CIP? CIP is not just deferred maintenance, it's the entire document, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's why I don't think we took that vote, did we? I don't think so.
Okay. So when I met with Melissa about how to structure the vote, this is what we came to. So if you add 761, 948, 75,400, it comes to the 1.2 that you just voted. That is 1,236,948. So it's the unfunded portion of the CIP. We're not voting to move forward with the deferred maintenance because that's a different process now.
Oh, I see, because they put that all together as one number for the, over the 4 years or something. Is that what you're saying?
The vote last year at town meeting was for 2 years worth of funding. So we
Got
don't do that funding again. We follow a different process to modify the request.
I see.
The
Okay,
appropriation has already been made by town meeting.
okay. All right.
I know it's
Does-
confusing. It's been, I mean, as Melissa said to me earlier today, this is uncharted territory and, you know, again, I certainly appreciate the feedback. It's not been easy for any of us. And so, you know, we'll take your input like we always do, and we know how to treat things. So again, when we were identifying what was black, it was whether it was on the list or not, but I think it's a point well taken. You know, if we move from one year that was outside of 25 and 26, then make that blue too. So that's totally fair. It's a different way than we were thinking about it, but it totally makes sense when explained that way. So we'll make those modifications. The other thing I also want to say is that maybe it's not urgent that we approve the deferred maintenance vote at today's meeting, because that doesn't need to go to Melissa. It needs to go to the school board and then the Board of Selectmen. So maybe we iterate this, and when's our next meeting, Helen? Or Betsy?
And the capital subcommittee?
Yeah,
We have in November.
December
Betsy-
4th,
Say it again?
December 4th.
so we can make these adjustments, and you can vote that to bring before the Board of Selectmen at the next meeting. I mean, I'm just saying, if people are feeling pressured, it certainly wasn't our intent to confuse people and make people feel pressured.
Yeah,
We
because we're not
understand
going to be
there's a lot of-
doing any of that until next
Right.
summer.
Exactly. So I don't want anybody to feel pressured. And it sounds like Mariah certainly feels that way.
Unless Charlie needs to get estimates.
Well, Susan, you're asking for additional money for deferred maintenance, which is what's called the mini CIP, which is part of the CIP process. So that you need to get to Melissa, you probably need a vote in order to get that to Melissa, don't you?
Hmm.
Your ticket items.
Susan, I don't think you should worry about me. I'm sure I voted my conscience, and I'm sure it'll get sorted out by the 30th, and we can proceed apace. So don't worry about it. Let's just end tonight's meeting.
Okay. All right, so I guess we're done. And we'll hopefully make it clearer at the school committee meeting what exactly we have to vote, and what has already been voted and just needs to go to the select board. I heard what you're saying, Susan, but I also heard what Carol's saying, that they haven't given up control of this. Is that correct? Advisory still
No,
needs.
what I'm saying is, it looks like you want new money for deferred maintenance for fiscal year 26. You want money over and above what was approved last year.
No,
Because it looks like you have an additional almost $600,000 in your updated plan, if I'm reading it correctly. So that new money request, which is integrated fully in this reallocation, that additional money would be part of the CIP that Melissa is putting together, that needs to come to us in early December.
Now, Susan, you're saying, no, that's not true. You know
no.
what, I'm
I mean,
gonna,
I'm just
I could
saying
be
that-
wrong.
Yeah. According to, again, I vetted this through the town to make sure that I was presenting the votes to you correctly. I can, you know, so I vetted this through Melissa, and she suggested that this was part of this process and how the vote was taken at town meeting, that we could make adjustments and we can spend money on other things, but that we have to go through this reapproval process. That's how the town meeting voted.
Because the
I'm not
money.
arguing, I'm just saying, that's,
Just to be clear, the monies that were appropriated in FY 25 that weren't spent, and the monies for FY 26 are basically
one lump of money.
one lump of money, but we've separated it out, what we did spend and what's left over. I mean, what's left over and the new money.
Yes,
And the part that's left over, we have to go to the select board to get the approval to use it. And the
correct.
part that's new, we have to go through the CIP process.
Which is how the votes are separated right now.
Does that, do you hear
Deferred
that?
maintenance is a reallocation. We're not
And I
asking.
think,
for any more money than
Susan's
town-
right
Yeah,
about that.
yeah. We're not asking for any more money than town meeting
I
approved
see.
for
The-
deferred maintenance. We're
So the
asking
five
for,
ninety-four is just updated reallocation.
Reallocation.
A reallocation of $595,000 rather than new money.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay,
It's good that we talk about it because, it's important to have clarity. But I did spend quite a bit of time, all of us on the administrative side, both town and school, reading what was passed, making sure that things tied together, and this was our and this is the votes that are before you tonight.
I'm sorry to make this more confusing, but I think the 594 is the new money.
It isn't. We already have the money, Helen.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right, I'm done. Are we good?
Thank you. I'm hanging up. Goodbye.
feel better,
Bye,
Helen.
Maria. Thank you.